Hello, everyone. I am Allison Merker Garner, and I am the creator and author of Musical Minds. And this video is on imposter syndrome. What is imposter syndrome, and do I have it? So, imposter syndrome really is a blanket term for a lot of different self-esteem issues, for lack of a better way of putting it. Self-esteem issues. So, what is imposter syndrome? Basically, it means that you don't feel like you're ever good enough. So, you have a tendency to compare yourself with the guy in the practice room next to you. You have a tendency to come up short in every competition you feel like you're in, whether you actually are or not. You feel like you're just not able to be good enough no matter what you do. So, imposter syndrome can have within it a lot of different behaviors that you may already be familiar with. For example, perfectionism. Are you a perfectionist? Do you know someone who's a perfectionist? Perhaps you have a student that's a perfectionist. A perfectionist is somebody that wants everything perfect. Why is that? Because they have an underlying belief that they're going to be criticized unless everything is perfect, and they're not going to feel safe. They're not going to feel secure with themselves unless they're not criticized. So they try to be perfect. And in being perfect, they feel like they're going to be safe. Nobody's perfect. So it's an endless cycle of not quite being perfect enough. And you may see that in yourself or in your students when they are always very hard on themselves, that their self-critic is quite vocal. And they measure their success on how perfect something is. And they will lift out the very, very detailed imperfections that they noticed within it. So they're never going to be fully at ease and happy with what they do. The whole point of the performance is to play perfectly. One side note to this, in working with people on perfectionism, is to realize that not only are they never going to get 100% out of their perfection, so they're never going to get that complete satisfaction that they're okay, but to also realize that it's no fun. There's no fun in that. What they're doing is they're taking, and I say they're doing, I think that many of us, including myself, have struggled with perfectionism. So what we do as musicians often is we take what we do in practice, the mindset that we have when we practice. That means being able to assess mistakes and correct them, practice them correctly so that we have them bulletproof, so that we always play correctly. That is the point of practice, is getting that nailed down. We use the metronome. We use slow intonation work if we have an instrument where we have to create our own intonation. We have to measure with our sensory perception, deliberate practice, using deliberate practice to create consistency in our playing. So that's necessary. But when we perform, it's a different mindset. If we bring the practice mindset into the performance, we get a perfectionist kind of approach. if we go into the performance and we leave that mindset in the practice room and adopt a new mindset, which is that of, I want to share this. I want to have a good time. I want this to feel good to me. I want this to be a great experience for myself and for everyone who's listening. It's no longer about perfection. And it captures and accesses our flow state in a way that practice is just going to be different then. We can get a flow state in our practice too, but is a different mindset going into it. So perfectionism is a type of imposter syndrome. Another one is people pleasing. Well, it really comes from the same place, doesn't it? If we please everybody, we won't be criticized. So we're safe pleasing everybody. But what's the problem with that? Think of if you're a teacher and you have policies and you don't keep those policies up. And those policies are designed to protect you and your energy and protect the people that are in your studio so that everybody gets what they need. What if you were a people pleaser and you thought, well, I can bend this a little bit, I can bend that a little bit, I can ignore that, and I can just let that go? What's going to happen? Eventually, there are going to be resentments. There will be no trust in what you say because you don't follow what you say. So you're going to have a hard time creating the boundaries that you need to feel safe, getting paid on time, having people arrive on time, not 20 minutes early and expect to have you ready. So things like that. If we do the people pleasing, it might make it easier for that single moment that we don't have to confront something, but on the long end, it's not helpful. It's not useful. So perfectionism, people pleasing, and there are a lot of subcategories of this, like low self-esteem. Well, we do that because we don't feel like we can speak up. So low self-esteem is common in this kind of situation. Workaholicism. If you're somebody that just has to get that one more bit of practice in, this still needs a little bit more practice. It's never done. It's never enough. We just get that extra practice in, and then it will be okay. And then it's not okay, right? Because there's still more. So another is being somebody who feels like you've got to be good at everything. I have to be knowledgeable about everything. I have to be knowledgeable about not just teaching my instrument and have all the answers to teaching my instrument, but I've got to know all the history. I've got to know all the theory. I've got to know it all. And so there's that manifestation of imposter syndrome as well. So if any of these resonate with you, you're not alone. And some of us have a little bit of all of them. Some of us are very much in one category, and some of us are blissfully and blessedly not having to deal with it. But in the way that we're taught, or the way most of us were brought up as musicians, we rightfully were taught to be very self-critical. And we are often put in positions that were positions of comparison, competing for a chair in an orchestra, or being in a solo competition, being lined up from best to worst, right? So it's no wonder that we have that mindset It's how we get a job, isn't it? We get a job through an audition with an orchestra or an organization or an interview. So once again, it's our culture supports it. It's up to us to make the decision that that's not best for us. We have to follow the rules. Of course, if we want to get a job, we have to audition or have an interview. But the way we go about it and the way we choose to support ourselves in it can be profoundly different. And what happens when we do that, when we change our self thinking, when we change the way we respond to ourselves, our bodies, when we get a little nervous, it allows for us to be able to reach a completely new level of functioning. It's a happier place, but we also attain a higher level of being. We're better at what we do when we take all of those pressures off and all those expectations out of there. So, imposter syndrome involves self-esteem and the things that we do, the behaviors we adopt to protect ourselves from criticism, from being hurt, from being discovered that we're not as good as we think we should be. I hope this was helpful to you.